Top five, top five, top five.
All right, welcome to the countdown, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special edition of the #1 sports ranking show. As you can see, we are in front of GEHA Field, aka Arrowhead Stadium, aka the home of the Kansas City Chiefs, who may make this list, but these are the top 5 best home crowd advantages in all of sports.
Man, we're looking at rowdy environments, some of the craziest fans. If your fan base is going to be up and live and your team wins games, you deserve to be on the top 5 in this list. But before we get into all that, y'all know y'all want to hit that like button. So go ahead and hit that like and go ahead and run up our subscribes so we can keep coming back every single week with some fire-ass content and some elite venues like the one you see behind us.
Absolutely. But getting into our list, starting us off with number 5, we're going all the way to Seattle with the Seattle Seahawks at the Old Century League Stadium. Doesn't even matter what their stadium is called anymore because they are still getting rowdy out there in the Pacific Northwest. Back in the day with the Legion of Boom, you knew the 12th man was always going to play a factor in the game result, and that home crowd advantage was nothing to play with and clearly had an impact on them having a lot of success in the 2010s and going forward.
A true raucous environment. Seattle was always jumping. They called it the 12th man for a reason. They didn't lose many games there. No team wanted to play there in the playoffs, and they just dominated throughout the whole process. Like you said, Rob, the Legion of Boom got the crowd up and rolling, and obviously they had players like Marshawn Lynch running through people, so it was just an exciting-ass time in Seattle, and hopefully we're going to continue to see it move that way in the very near future.
So going from the Pacific Northwest all the way to the Northeast, we're going to the New York City, we're going to the Bronx, we're going to the New York Yankees Stadium out there. They call it the Zoo for a reason because of all the heckling, all the fan experience and commentary, and the addition of the peanut gallery out there in New York, the impact that that has on the mental aspect of the game of these players. You know, mental toughness is such a thing in the game, Brandon. A lot of people don't understand that these players deal with a lot of shit coming their way, and you got to have thick skin. You got to be able to take compliments, be able to take criticism coming your way because you know it's going to come fast and furious, and it doesn't come faster and more furious than in New York with those fans because they're such a passionate fan base, and they help those Yankees get an even bigger advantage than they already have in the payroll aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Yankee Stadium. We're talking about the Zoo, the place that nobody wants to be in October. Baseball's most notarized stadium, one of the toughest teams. We're talking about the Bronx Bombers. We're talking about so much history that has happened in that stadium from decade after decade, from the 1920s all the way to the 2020s. So much has happened in that stadium. So many prominent games with so many prominent teams and so many Hall of Famers. It's hard to just not make that stadium in the Bronx one of the toughest places to get a dub and the most important part of the year.
Right, so Yankee Stadium as a whole, so much history, like you said. Obviously, they brought the new Yankee Stadium in 2009, won that first World Series, and still having a big impact on the fan experience as well. But sticking into New York, going into number 3, we're going to Madison Square Garden, Brandon, the most famous arena in the world. James Dolan might be the owner, but it doesn't matter because the fans are giving their all every single time. Everyone, doesn't matter if it's LeBron, if it's Kobe, if it's Steph Curry, if it's worldwide singers and artists and performers, they all will tell you Madison Square Garden is a special place because it's just different. Like you said, man, that place is rocking. And when you have a playoff game or a game of magnitude, you can hear the crowd as soon as you turn on the TV, as soon as you enter the stadium. It's such a great atmosphere. It's such a great experience for those players, and it's why people get up for that game unlike any other in the NBA.
Yeah, 4 and 3, we're hopping from one borough to the other. Madison Square Garden is one of the most electric places to play. So many big games, Rob, like you said, even from college sports to performances, all of that. The one thing that the New York Knicks have to be careful for is everybody wants to play at Madison Square Garden. Everybody wants to have their best game there. So obviously it's not an easy place to play, but the Knicks have to do a very good job of protecting that home court. And it's just very tough in such a prominent stadium and such a key part of one of the nation's most prominent cities.
100%. So getting into number 2, we're sticking in the Northeast, but we're going down to Philadelphia for the Philadelphia Phillies with Red October, Brandon. It's something different out there.
Rob, we're talking about Red October in Citizens Bank Park. We're talking about one of the most raucous crowd, one of the craziest atmospheres to be in. They got all those nice ass stadiums and that big ass parking lot in Philly, and that's why you've seen Philly be so relevant throughout the baseball landscape of the 2000s and 2010s and 2020s. We're talking about the Chase Utleys of the world, the Jimmy Rollins, the Ryan Howards. They've had so many big time players that have made so many big time moments. There's such a great fan base behind them that has them ready to play every single game. You can't wait to play in that arena as a player. for that squad, for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Absolutely. I mean, when you talk about home crowd advantages, Brandon, you got to mention Philly. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's the Eagles, if it's the 76ers, or if it's the Phillies. And we picked the Phillies for a reason because it seems like that entire passionate fan base. We know how Philly fans can be.
Yeah.
They're passionate as all hell. They love their team. They'll die for their team. And we didn't see a better representation of that than with the Philadelphia Phillies during Red October, during these recent runs, during those World Series runs about a decade ago with those guys like you mentioned. And it's just such a atmosphere that you have to be a part of to see it. Like when you are watching those videos from afar and you see those Rhys Hoskins home runs, you see those Bryson Stott's bombs as soon as he steps up to the plate, and the entire crowd singing A-OK as he walks up to the batter's box. It's just such an electric atmosphere, and that's exactly what epitomizes a home crowd advantage for these teams.
You know, a stadium has a different atmosphere when the whole fan base is chanting in unison, something like "Hey, okay," like that's a different level of home field advantage.
Absolutely. So it had to be a number 2, but getting into number 1 for the best home crowd advantage in all of sports, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, man. We're talking about Arrowhead Stadium, Patrick Mahomes, whoever the quarterback is, because they set the record back on Monday Night Football in 2014 against the New England Patriots before Patrick Mahomes was even relevant into the city of Kansas City. But now that they have an all-time legend in his prime, they're winning Super Bowls, they're going to Super Bowls, they're playing in AFC championships at this exact stadium every single year, it seems like. Of course, it's even going to bring more attention, more exposure, more magnitude to these games. And that's exactly why these fans are as passionate as ever, are giving their all, are making such loud noises, and are giving the Chiefs such a big home crowd advantage for those games.
If you're old, this is the one stadium you do not want to come to. They'll pop your eardrums. They're going to be screaming the entire game. The decibels are hitting different levels that have never been seen at a stadium in any sporting history event. This is one of the craziest crowds. And the thing about Kansas City and the Chiefs, they've been so good over the last decade that they've had so many prominent, huge playoff games here. Yeah. And it's just been decided by the crowd. Like, the crowd has been able to cause false starts. They've been able to get players off their mojo by talking shit when they walk into the stadium and the whole 9 yards. So if you haven't been to a game at Kansas City, this is the perfect venue to go if you really want to be in a wild-ass environment.
Yeah, no doubt. So there you have it, the top 5 home crowd advantages in all of sports, capping off the list with the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Got a great list for you guys. Looking forward to seeing who you all think could be the top 5 home crowd advantages in the comments. If we left your team or your stadium or your arena off the list, let us know, man. This is just what we think. We're excited to see who you think should be on the list as well.
Y'all made it to the end of the video, so you must have enjoyed the content. So while you're here, hit that like and tap that subscribe so we can be back every single week in some fire-ass environments like Kansas City, Arrowhead.
Exactly. So until then,
peace.
see you all next time.
Deuces.